Happy New Year! New year, new us. We've got new music composed by our very own Sarah Livings-Walsh.
Now, for the first episode of Revolution Report for 2026, we wanted to ring in the new year with some good news.
We'll go over the recent decision by the Supreme Court regarding the National Guard, an update on the DC sandwich guy, and Zohran Mamdani wins.
Woo! And we're also going to share some resources for the victims of the recent floods here in California. So stay tuned.
Now let's get started.
Let's do it. To kick off the good news, Trump announced on December 31st, 2025, New Year's Eve, that he was withdrawing the National Guard from Los Angeles, Chicago, and Portland.
His announcement was made following the Supreme Court's rejection a week earlier of the Trump administration's request to send the National Guard to Chicago to protect the ICE agents in the city. The Supreme Court did not find that the criteria for emergency activation of the National Guard was met in the city, effectively halting Trump's efforts with the National Guard there.
Trump, of course, tried to spin the withdrawal of the troops as he announced it, claiming that he'd eventually send them back, quote, stronger than ever. But when have we ever known him to just accept a loss?
Facts, he's famously bad at it. And this decision by the Supreme Court will also help lay the groundwork to get the National Guard removed from other cities across the country. Finally, the Supreme Court is doing something to help curb the fascism of the Trump administration.
Finally. Unfortunately, the court's ruling won't help with the presence of the National Guard in D.C., because D.C. is a federal district and not a state. But we do have some good news with D.C. coming up in just a second.
And while pushback against Trump's actions by the highest court in the country may have taken ages, this is still a major setback for him and a victory for the people fighting against his fascism. This process took months, but the legal action taken by the states pushing back against Trump and his administration is paying off. And that legal action taken by the states was inspired by the action of the people of those states, fighting back against fascism in their streets.
Yes, and we're looking at you, all these revolutionaries that are tuning in. Also, this is a good reminder that even though the process may be long, resisting fascism and authoritarianism in your community and country is worth it.
Facts, Sarah.
Look at the results.
They speak for themselves, yeah.
Yeah.
And speaking of resisting, regular listeners of the show may remember a story we shared a few episodes ago about a man in D.C. who was arrested and charged with felony assault for throwing a wrapped Subway sandwich at a Customs and Border Patrol agent back in August. He was protesting the presence of federal troops in the city under Trump's orders. I was about to say diva.
Well, back in November, a jury found him not guilty. A federal grand jury rejected the original charge of felony assault, and the charges were then reduced to a misdemeanor. But the people of D.C. still refused to convict the man, declaring him not guilty, even of a misdemeanor.
Amazing. And that is a demonstration of effective jury nullification. For those who haven't checked out our episode on jury nullification, it's when a jury gives a not guilty verdict, even if the defendant is technically guilty, because they feel the application of the law is unjust. Learn more about it and your rights as a juror by listening to our episode on the subject, if you haven't already.
Now, for some more good news. As I'm sure some of our listeners are aware, Zohran Mamdani was elected the mayor of New York City.
Woo! His campaign was a masterclass in grassroots organizing, effective media strategies, and, most importantly, proof that socialist policies like free public transportation and affordable housing are popular and electable platforms.
Yes, and emphasis on popular. I know a lot of these bots in the comments love to say something contrary, who are allegedly paid by, people in power.
Allegedly.
But we will go into further detail on that in another episode. I digress. He faced opposition from practically every aspect of the Democratic establishment, with multiple famous Democrats voicing their dislike of him. But none of that mattered to the people of New York, who rejected the old party system that doesn't actually serve the people, and instead said, "We want change."
And Mamdani was sworn in as mayor on New Year's Day and immediately began acting on his plan to help provide affordable housing to New Yorkers.
Now get this. On his first day in office, he signed an executive order intervening on tenants' behalves in legal cases involving a real estate group, Pinnacle, that has over 5,000 violations and 14,000 complaints to its name.
Clearly, they've got some problems. He also established 2 new task forces for the city, the LIFT Task Force and the Speed Task Force. LIFT stands for Land Inventory Fast Track, and SPEED stands for Speedlining Procedures to Expedite Equitable Development.
The LIFT Task Force will use city-owned land to accelerate housing development and drive down renting costs in the city. And the Speed Task Force will identify and get rid of bureaucratic barriers that drive up costs and slow down housing construction, making it more affordable to access housing across the city.
It's great to see that Mamdani is actually following through on his campaign promises to help New Yorkers live in the city they love. And we hope he continues to deliver.
And speaking of delivering, also Mamdani signed an executive order revoking all executive orders signed by Eric Adams after he was indicted on federal corruption charges, which was back in September of 2024. So that's over a year of executive orders gone, which makes sense. Why should someone who has been indicted for corruption get to make policy that affects people's lives? Just a thought.
Just a thought. Another wonderful thing about Mamdani's successful campaign is that it has sparked momentum for other like-minded candidates across the country. People are running for office on similar socialist platforms and getting more attention than they would have previously. It's clear that people aren't happy with the status quo and want actual, positive change in their lives and want to elect candidates who feel how they do.
So, if your city or state has elections coming up in 2026, check out all the candidates and see if anyone outside the established candidates has any policies that really resonate with you and would help your community.
Absolutely, Sarah. Now, let's move on to the resources portion of the episode. We've had some pretty bad flooding in California due to the recent storms. People have lost their lives, property has been destroyed, and our communities have been hit really hard.
Absolutely. We wanted to share some resources for any California residents in need of disaster relief and give some tips for the people across the country if they need any assistance.
Believe it or not, your elected officials should have compiled lists that you can access online with tons of useful disaster relief resources. For California residents, check out Senator Alex Padilla's website, where he has resources for everything from bill assistance to CalFresh food replacement and replacing vital documents. We'll include a link to his disaster relief page on our website, handballcourtradio.com.
And we also wanted to share that the Los Angeles Fire Department is offering free sandbags to LA residents. So, if you need any, stop by your local station and ask. And for others across the country, reach out to your local fire department and see if they would do the same if you're in need.
Finally, we wanted to urge our listeners to check in on their communities. The start of this year has been crazy, and taking care of each other is so important. Caring for the most vulnerable members of our community is how we uplift everyone. No one is free until everyone is free.
T, speak on it. And, as Martin Luther King Jr. said, the moral arc of the universe is long, but it bends towards justice. Community care is what we're all about. And we know you are too. We wish you all a wonderful 2026, and we look forward to uplifting our communities together in the years to come.
Facts. That's about it for this episode. We hope it was informative.
As always, you can check out our website, handballcourtradio.com. You can also follow us on Blue Sky at Handball Court Radio. And you can also follow me there at Sarah Livings-Walsh.
I'm there as Not Like Mona Lisa. If you're watching on YouTube, make sure you like, subscribe, and share so that you don't miss our content. And don't forget to rate, review, and follow us on Spotify or Apple Podcasts.
And with that, I'm Sarah Livings-Walsh.
I'm Analisa Venolia.
And this has been Revolution Report.